Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're still, we're trying to do the basic survival tutorial. We've had a few crashes, so I took a break from that and tried to do some testing determination. And we're back in the kind of tutorial mode. So the goal of this particular episode is actually to build I want to say medium-sized miner. And the reason I call it a medium-sized miner is because some of the miners that I've built are pretty large scale, and this isn't quite that large scale. So the goal here is actually going to be a 7x7 grid on the front, and I should probably pull down. We'll put the antenna on later. So. All right. So I think I've got everything that I need here, and the things that I have on the menu bar here on the toolbar is a large reactor. I think I could probably get by with small reactors. So let me go ahead and we're obviously going to need several. But small reactors. The number 2 slot there is non-vanilla. So that we're going to put on absolutely last. 3 conveyors. 4 got to have some place to put the material that we mine. So containers. 5 cockpit. We gotta have a cockpit. 6. Is a connector, 7 is batteries, 8 is an ore detector, and of course 9 is the drills themselves. So what all do we really need? We're going to need drills. I have helpers helping me here. And what I mean by helpers is I've got the build and repair system going here. So when I place these, and actually let me go ahead and make sure I do not have Space Master turned on. When I place these, in fact it's going to yell at me for placing these because I don't have any steel plate. Let me grab, I'm going to do steel plate and interior plate. Steel plate and interior plate, which I think will be plenty enough to start most anything. That should cover about 90% of the blocks. All right. What do I want to accomplish here? Is let me go ahead and build this drill platform first. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Why 7? The containers are 3x3, so it had to be at least 3x3, and a lot of the thrusters are at least a grid unit wide. That was one of the things that seemed best is rather than a 5x5, actually doing a 7x7 grid. So 7x7 it was. And we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty much... what do you need for a miner? Let's go ahead and discuss. Obviously you need drills. Can't really mine without a drill of some kind. So in this case, this is our drills. We need containers. We need storage. Okay, so let me see. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this would be 7. So 7 by 7, for those of you who are math challenged, is 49. So this is going to have 49 drills on it, which is going to be reasonably capable. We definitely will have a good capability for drills, taking the materials and making things move. So I'm going to do a G again, and we're going to go into, this is what I want, a conveyor sorter, which I'm going to go ahead and replace that for now with a conveyor sorter. Now, why do I want to do a conveyor sorter? Drills can store an awful lot, and sometimes they do. And I don't necessarily want the drill system to store materials. So we're gonna have it not store those, and the way we not store is to actually pull them in with a sorter. So basically, the sorter's job here is to pull all the materials out of the drill and put it into a container. That's the whole point of the drill. And I apologize for the flashing. Complain to Keen. Nothing I can do about it. I tried. The only way I have successfully been able to make that go away is do a save. Why that makes a difference, your guess is as good as mine. All right. Containers. So let's it's kind of one of those interesting things. In fact, one of the things is to how do we design the drill package here so we can drive it, and unfortunately, because they adjusted how the drills work, it used to be you could get about a block width of extra space around, around the drills. That's not the case anymore. You have about a quarter of a block. So one of the things that I am going to have to do here, this is obviously a cockpit. I'm going to bolt this cockpit at the top, but it's underneath the drill, which is to say underneath the space of the drill. So what does that mean? You can't just sit in the cockpit and look forward. There's no way to sight that. The only way I could really do that is to actually chop one of these out and put in the cockpit instead of the drill. And the downside to that is that, again, because the drill itself only takes out a certain portion of the voxel on the sides, then it is possible that I still leave a piece of voxel which then the machine itself runs into. So my inclination is to actually put the cockpit there. So I know that looks really silly, but the other thing we're ultimately going to need is oxygen, which is really to say we need those gaseous materials to help us do what needs to be done. So breathe, namely. Okay, so the real question at this point is what do I need to add in here? So we have okay, I put my cockpit down so we can remove the cockpit generator. So let's go ahead and get an oxygen generator. We've got the drills down, so we don't need that anymore. Don't need that. Okay, and I want to do hydrogen thrusters, and that's not the most efficient method, but either I put a large reactor on here and ion thrusters, or we do hydrogen and maybe we should do ion. To find the ion thrusters, ion. Here we go. Maybe we'll do ion thrusters. All right. Having said all that, we started out on a mission here to do the oxygen tank or the oxygen generator here because ultimately I need to put an oxygen generator But one of the other things we kind of have to decide is how to put this in. The advantage to this here is I need a tank, which is oxygen tank. Take the place of that one, and I think I'm going to go ahead and put an oxygen tank over here. Now, why an oxygen tank? The biggest reason for having an oxygen tank, and I may have actually put this in the wrong place, but the reason to put an oxygen tank in is when you run out of ice, then you no longer have a source of oxygen. So in this case, you use some ice to fill up the oxygen tank, certainly, but even when I run out of ice, I still have a supply of oxygen. So that's why I tend to always put an oxygen tank on my builds. Now, just to be symmetrical with use of space, I'm going to go ahead and put the ore detector over here. That way it is more or less symmetrical with the tank. All right. Having done that, we have to figure out how we're going to put everything else in here. So we need containers at this point. So let's discuss a little more. Where will the reactors be? Now, if we look at things in terms of what the drills are producing, I'll go ahead and use that word. Oh, and it didn't fix that. I'm still baffled that why doesn't anybody at Keen actually notice this shit? I mean, What the fuck? Okay, so the drills are producing raw materials, which is to say the drills are pulling the raw materials from the voxels they're drilling through. I need to put my reactors off, preferably the containers, because then I will be able to with them being off the containers, then I will be able to store uranium within those containers that the reactors will use. So I think what we really need to do is put, let's see, there we go. So this is kind of right set up. Now the question at this point is how many containers do we need, which is really going to drive the length of the ship. And I think 3 is a good idea. So up front here, we're going to do reactors. And I'm going to point the reactors this way, and there's a reason why I'm doing that. Because of that, right there. So the reactor will ultimately allow for the feeding of the oxygen generator as well, or rather the gas generator. There's that. Alright, so reactor, do I have enough power for everything we're doing? And the answer to that is going to be unknown until we can figure out really what the power requirements end up being. So 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And then I need one on the other side here. Alright, so the reactors are unpowered because I don't have any uranium. Now, to get some uranium, I can steal it from over here if I actually have a significant quantity. Well, yeah, 1 million. Alright, so let's take 200,000 of this, which means we'll put 50,000 in each reactor. So I need to attach onto the ship here. Inventory, we're going to go ahead and do reactor. So my small reactor 1 is 50,000. Control panel, drills, and I want to rename that reactor to reactor 1. Okay, let's start drills. Drill 1. down here we should be drill 49. Yep. So this is drills. These are drills. Turn off the taskbar, or sorry, the toolbar. Don't need to see all those drills. Batteries are the same thing. I'm going to rename that not to battery 12, but to battery. Batteries. Batteries. Save. Off on the toolbar, off on the terminal. Reactors. Off on the toolbar, off on the terminal. Container. So the first container I put in there was that forward container. So we're going to call that container large forward. This one is going to be container large mid, and this is going to be container large aft. And then we will do containers. Obviously they have inventory. Alright. We'll leave most of that for now. Let's go ahead and configure the sorter. This is going to be a pull-in. We don't need it. Yeah, actually we do need it on the toolbar. Blacklist nothing, which means everything. Okay, so we're going to pull in from the drills constantly and shove it into that first container. Cockpit. Ore detector, oxygen tank, not a whole lot of gibberish there. Oxygen tank, we're going to turn that off on the toolbar and turn off the inventory. There's just no need to do that. We'll leave that one on the toolbar. Eventually we could have other stuff, so I'm going to call this systems gaseous, even though all it's doing is life support. That's all this is doing. So in this case, off on the terminal. The cockpit does not need to be on a toolbar, and we're going to put that in a systems miscellaneous. And we'll probably have quite a few other systems in there as well. Okay, and I did something clearly when that's what I did. Alright, so the ore detector, and then gaseous. Alright, and then we turn that back off. So ore detector I stuffed in there. Ore detector can go into miscellaneous. I still want to leave it on the toolbar, absolutely. So we'll do a save and then a terminal off. That way I still have access to that when I actually am programming my cockpit, the toolbar on the cockpit. All right, conveyor sorter. It's pretty much going to be on all the time. So I'm going to leave that on the toolbar. It does have an inventory, but let's go ahead and put that into miscellaneous as well. So save and terminal. All right, so let's back off and have a look at what we have. So obviously we have no thrusters. We're going to need gyros. Let's pull some of those things in that we know we need, which will kind of give us a little bit of a gentle prompt. So there's a gyroscope. We'll put that there. We already have batteries, but we may need more batteries. So that was done. The conveyor sorter is done. We may need more reactors. So what's the other things that we need? We need gyros. Gyro thrusters. What's the best place for gyros? And that's kind of a strange question. It's a architectural design question that it's kind of one of those. Well, where do you want to put them? I am inclined to put them right here. I'm going to put 6. Then we're going to test because I'm not sure 6 is going to be enough. There's 3 and 6. So once those are built, all right. So the thing we have to be careful of, we're going to jump in here for the first time. I'm going to do a V so I can actually see. And all right, so the good news is that's actually very lively. When we get more weight on here, I think we're going to see some differential. So should be good. All right. T to get out of this. How many thrusters does one need? That very subject is always difficult because how do you know? How do you know how many you need? I'm going to put 7 thrusters down each side. That may be too many. And what I mean by too many is maneuverability is all fine and dandy, but if you're too maneuverable, then you may cause other problems. So I'm going to put 1 there and 1 here if it will actually go there. So there's 1, 2, 3, and this may actually end up being 8. And the reason I say that is we're out of thruster components, I bet. So we're going to do a K, get into production, and queue up a bunch of thruster components. So what I am intending is once I have all of the thrusters down the sides, then I need to create I need to figure out how to do backwards thrust. Backwards thrust is going to be a challenge, as it always is. My inclination is to put them internally somehow. And the challenge with internals is you have to have this 4 or 5 thruster gap. So technically I could put 2 thrusters there. We may need to add a bit more onto the ship, and the ship is going to look a little bit odd because it's so short. So we may add another either 1 or 2 cargo containers to equalize things a little bit. I think we have enough gyros, so I'm not worried about that there. Let's go ahead and turn this over and put a few more thrusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the same thing here. And again, this may be too many. So if we look at what we're doing here, regardless of what kind of vessel you're building, and this is more getting into vessel building than basic survival, so we're straying a little bit from topic, but some of the basics of shipbuilding, you have to have power. Where have you heard that before? You have to have gyros. You have to have that force to turn your vessel. You have to have thrust in 6 directions. Let me say that again. You have to have thrust in 6 directions. Why 6? Because you need up and down, pretty straightforward. You need right and left, you need forward and backwards. Okay, so with those 6 directions, you will be able to control the movement of your vessel, no matter which way you happen to be going. Keeping in mind that the problem with missing thrust on a particular side is you might be able to use the other side. So let's use, for example, forward thrust. So if I have forward thrust but I don't have reverse thrust, then I can propel myself forward. I can accelerate forward. But there's, for practical consideration, no friction in space. So how do I slow down once I have gotten up to a certain speed? And the only way we can do that is by having the reverse of whatever thrust we have in motion. So if I have right thrust, which is to say thrust towards the port side, then I have to have thrust on the port side to arrest that. Obviously I had thrust on the starboard side pushing me to the port, and vice versa. Up down is the same thing. If I have thrust in the upward direction, that means I had downward thrust, something pushing away from down, which is to say up. But if I'm going to arrest that motion, I have to have thrusters in the direction that I want to arrest. So if I'm going up, I need thrusters pointing up to arrest that motion. So that's what all of this is about. So at this point, I'm thinking 7 is going to be overkill, which is actually going to be 8 per row. And the reason I say 8 per row is because I want my maneuvering thrusters to also be pointing in these 4 cardinal directions. All right, so what do I need to do? I need to let's turn that off. I need to get into my production and make more thrusters. Alright, so there's 4 directions. What directions are those? I guess it's all relative. I put the cockpit somewhere. Oh, I am upside down relative to my station. So, I put the cockpit here. This is up. Okay? It's arbitrary because there's no up in space. Up is relative to a gravity well. So, given the size of this particular monster, let us go ahead and obviously I need more containers. So just cause we're going to put 2 more containers here. Now, what this does require is so cargo container. This is should we do forward aft? Would that confuse everybody? I think that'd be fun. We're gonna put those back on. We forgot the large. Large. That was a goal. This is now mid. Our aft, which is our 3rd one. So this is our mid. Maybe we won't be quite that confusing, huh? So this is our mid aft. Our mid now is mid forward, and then the forward is still the forward. The last of the containers here, once I find them, there it is going to be large aft. Okay, so didn't completely make this confusing purposefully. Aft and forward, and then the 3 mids. And we're going to put those back in container. And then we do not need them on the toolbar. So we'll turn them off on the toolbar. We're going to leave them on the inventory. So let's make sure that's on, and then we turn them off on the terminal. Okay, gyros. Gyro 1, 2, and 3 are... darn it. Gyros 1, 2, and 3 are actually the starboard side gyros. Interesting. Starboard 1, starboard 2, and starboard 3. Now, when you're building, do you need to be this OCD on things? Absolutely not. Which is actually port 1, number 5, port 2, and port 3. And we're going to create another group called gyros. How about? We do not need those on the toolbar, and we do not want them on the terminal. All right, ion thrusters. We have a bazillion ion thrusters, and the reason we have that many, it's still a bunch complete, which means I still need more parts, more pods. Production. 4,000 will be enough. All right, 5. We have two choices. Do we do a keep everything symmetrical, or do we get really huge? The problem with really huge is I may not be able to paste them. So those are 3 by 3 by 2. And I may not be able to paste it because all right, 5. So we're kind of doing the same thing here. We're going to just paste all of these on the back, which will be our forward thrust. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. Alright, so that's our the beginning of 7 wide. Alright, so there's 7. Let's go ahead and add the 2 rows on the bottom. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit strange here, and purposefully leave gaps. Now, I will explain that shortly. So, we were talking about maneuvering thrusters earlier. So, what I want to do is create a group. So there's my gap. All right. What I want to do is create, and this is going to be our reverse thrust, which is going to be obviously less than our forward thrust, because potentially we don't need to thrust backwards through the galaxy. We are just slowing down and stopping. All right, let me continue on here. Now, what is the gap? The gap is I am pre-planning, and the gap will be for my maneuvering thrusters. And normally my OCD says I need to number everything appropriately. All right. Now, if I remember correctly, we need 5 blocks, 5 block distance in front of the thrusters to keep them from burning everything else up. So now that I'm once again upside down. Now what I possibly could do, which may not be a bad idea, I'm into batteries. So what I think I'm going to do here is put in a row of batteries that's also going to be somewhat structural support. So I'm going to do that symmetrically. Completed already, but that's all right. Try not to roast myself here. All right. Being as I've got, oh darn it, inventory. 80 thrusters. And again, I do batteries big time. So let's do top. Now, why is this a good thing? Okay, there we go. I think I spun that the wrong way. But too late now, I'm not going to shave them all down because you lose all those components. I guess I can be consistent, can I? So even though the control panels are not where I want them to be, at least I'm consistent. Okay, so this kind of looks somewhat structurally sound. What do I want to do? I think I want a port side and a starboard side connector. So here's what we're going to do. Conveyor junctions take a certain amount of CPU time, and I'm not sure that that's true. I have never had any indication of it actually taking CPU cycles. Now that's probably because my machine is high-end enough that I don't see those sorts of things. But from the testing some of the other folks have done online, and I can't find a direct reference to that off the top of my head, was that the conveyor junctions actually take CPU time versus the conveyor tubes, which do not. So in this case, I'm going to use a conveyor tube to do what I want, and then I'm going to put on a connector on the side. So this is the starboard side connector. Because obviously I want a way to move materials out of this and into something else. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing over here. Conveyor tube, and then connector. So spin that connector around. And again, because of my forever love of batteries, I want to make sure they're facing the right way. Then the batteries are going to go in here. So there's a set of batteries complete. And make sure I am putting them in here. There is, I'm going to put a gap there, and the reason I'm going to put a gap there is because I might want to do something here. But I'll explain that when I get there. Right. Let's go up here. Spin that around, battery. You know what, I'm going to leave the gap up here, I'll fill the bottom one. Alright. Okay, so that one is forward. And click. Alright, and the problem on this other side is there's none of them complete, so I can't paste that just yet. Alright, so we are clearly out of power cells. So, okay, and then production. Does it? No, we need more thrusters, don't we? Yeah, we need more thruster components. So might as well queue those up as well. So K, production, and thruster components. There we go. So at this point we have thrust in every direction, unbuilt still, yes, We have 4 reactors, and while 4 reactors may or may not be enough, um, I think I'm going to go with it. And here's why. When I hook up to the station, I'm going to be able to use station power to charge. When I'm out and about and actually doing the mining, then the batteries and the reactors on this unit will be able to charge and hopefully compensate for ion thrusters use. Again, ion thrusters use electricity to do what they do. So if you do not have enough electricity, you might have some problems. Now, I've got a boatload of batteries on this thing, and that was purposeful. It was absolutely what I wanted on here, and the reason for that is the reactors can run at full tilt, charge, but I always have this abundance of power by the use of batteries. So I like this idea. All right. So what I need to do is talk to these guys up here and figure out, you see I have, this is going back and forth from a ready state to a non-ready state, so it's waiting on things, and it will tell you what it's waiting on. So I need thrusters, I need construction components, and power cells. Okay, I didn't know about the construction components, so let's go ahead and queue those up. And I could have done that right there. Yes, you're right. Okay, so okay, go into production and thruster components, or sorry, construction components. So let's go ahead and queue up 2,000 of those. Can never have too many construction components. Batteries take a little while to build. I just want one of them on this side to complete so I can see what it looked like. I suppose I could grab my welder, and I'm guessing all that is missing. Oh, construction components. Oh, just construction components. Oh. We're going to take 50 and then weld up one of the batteries on this side. Right, so it's facing aft, which means 7. I just need to rotate battery around. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. See where we're at in production here. And it's taking every single one of those, which is wow. Alright, so obviously this is going to take a little while. I think rather than having you endure the growing of grass, we'll take a break here. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.